Okay, let's move on. Florida State. Now, this here is actually one team where we have two different lines,
Mhm.
which is not unusual when you get closer to the season. But this early in the off season, there's not a ton of sport books that actually have lines out there for win totals. But Florida
It's tough
State,
to find, yeah.
yeah, Florida State, you can find at both 6.5 and 7.5,
Mhm.
um, which is interesting to me. If we look at their schedule, so they open with Duquesne, then they play
Mhm.
LSU, bye week at Louisville, then Boston College, Wake Forest,
Yep.
at NC State,
Yep.
Clemson, another bye week, Georgia Tech, at Miami, at Syracuse, Louisiana, and
Mhm.
Florida, of course.
Yep.
Now, Florida. Now, let's talk about Florida State a little bit, just from what they were last year. I would say that last year was they improved as far as the quality of their team, but they still went 5-7. Um, and yeah, it was. I think it was frustrating for Florida State fans because they were pretty clearly better than the season before. In Mike Sanford's second year, they got better, but you have to think that not as much better as they would have liked, obviously, as Florida State fans.
Dude, the schedule's tough. Like
Yeah,
they play two SEC teams. They play Florida and LSU.
yeah,
Hang on. And then they play Boston College, Wake Forest, NC State, Clemson in back to back to back to back weeks.
yeah.
And they also play Miami sprinkled in there. Like they get to have Duquesne week 0,
Hmm.
hooray. So that's a win. Like you do have a couple of wins in there. But dude, I just don't see how they get. I don't see how they get this high. I really don't. It feels like an easy under for me. And it is. It's an under for me. I feel fairly confident. And it's not that they're bad. It's
Hmm.
I feel they're a step below the rest of these teams though. Like, do I think they're gonna go beat Boston College? I don't. Do I think they're better than Wake Forest? No, I don't think they're like NC State, Clemson. No, those are better teams than them. And I think Florida will beat them again. I think Florida and LSU will beat them again. So, like, yeah, like how am I supposed to take the over there at all? Like, I don't see this many wins popping up on their schedule.
Yeah. So I think there's a few reasons just looking at the team, like not even necessarily looking at the schedule, but just looking at the team. Like there's a few reasons for optimism. Jordan Travis last year, once he actually took over as the full time starter, they were
Who's
kind of doing the thing with Mackenzie Milton back and forth. And when they finally went to Jordan Travis, he had pretty good numbers.
mhm.
Really good runner. And I think the hope is just that he can be a serviceable passer, which he felt like he's never going to be special as a passer, but he also wasn't terrible at it last year. And
Right.
that's a significant thing because eventually we're going to get to a team that has a quarterback who's a really good runner, but is just a trash passer. Um, Florida State, like Jordan Travis, is not that quarterback. He's not a terrible quarterback. They brought in Micah Pittman, the receiver from Oregon, transfer portal, as well as like three other receivers.
Mhm.
The receivers were a problem last year. Those were trash. I don't think that they have a legit number one guy, but they have a few guys that are like there's some hope. Like they can't be worse than last year at receiver. And the offensive line has been trash for a while. And I guess the other positive there is like you have four starters returning, and they brought in a couple guys from the portal. Like it can't be worse. Kind of like the receivers. Like if these two position groups can improve from trash to average, Florida State's offense might not be the dregs of the ACC again. And I think their defense is solid.
I mean, they lost Jermaine Johnson. Like, I mean, he
Yeah,
was. I mean, that hurts.
it
Like,
does.
I'm just so okay. Just like, where are you at with it? Over or under? Do you have a pick?
Um, so let me look at their schedule again. See,
That's a murderer's row. That's tough. That is
it
tough.
is it is super tough. Honestly, at the 7.5 number, I'm definitely taking the under.
Right.
With the 6.5 number, I don't hate the over on that. Maybe like I think there's a chance they could get there. Just okay. Let's find the wins. If they get to 7 wins, what will it take? They'll beat
Okay.
Duquesne. They'll
Right.
beat Louisville.
Yep.
Maybe they beat Boston College. Maybe they beat Wake.
Mm-mm.
Georgia Tech, Syracuse, and Louisiana. Like if that's like that to me almost feels like the ceiling. Like that's how you get there, but I'm not picking that. I'll go under 7.5.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, even that was only 6 right there. That's
Okay.
1,
I think I
2,
counted 7, but
3. Oh, okay. You gave them Louisville, Boston College, and Wake,
yeah.
as well as Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Louisiana.
But even at that number, you're still going under the 7.5. Like,
Right. The 7.5 feels like a slam dunk. Like the seven and a
yeah,
half really feels like a slam dunk. If you could still get it, I feel like that number will go down probably before the beginning of the season. But
yeah.
I'm in agreement there. I think we have agreement on the under.
Honestly, wouldn't they have to be happy with a 7-5 season and feel like the arrow's at least pointing up?
Thrilled, absolutely thrilled if they go 7 and 5. Are you kidding? If they go 7 and 5, like 6 and 6 is not a bad schedule. It's not a bad record with this schedule. Considering that you lost the number 1 overall recruit famously, right? And he goes to Jackson State and plays for Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
Like that takes a lot of air out of the building.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying if you can even go 500 this year, if you can go 6 and 6, that's a success at Florida State. It may not feel like one, but it will be.
Yeah, I agree completely. It has to be considered a success if you make a bowl game at Florida State. By the way, and part of the reason I say that is, we always think of like Florida State. That's one of those brand names of college football, right? Like that's got to be like every pundit out there is saying that, well, Florida State, they got to figure it out. Like they have a lot of talent. They got all the talent you could ever want. Not as much, not so true if you actually look at it a little bit. So we know the blue chip ratio, which Bud Elliott does every year. Like basically the teams that have at least 50% blue chippers on their roster over the last 4 cycles of recruiting, like those are the teams that have a chance to win the national title. And Florida State has historically been one of those teams. Obviously, they won a national title earlier this decade, or last decade, less than a decade ago, I should say, with a blue chip ratio team, like NFL players all over. Right now, if you look at their blue chip ratio, it hasn't the official blue chip ratio that Bud Elliott puts out hasn't actually come out this offseason to my knowledge, but I just did my own math. 36% blue chippers on their roster right now. In the last 4 classes, they have not had a class where they signed double-digit blue chippers. So it's not that it's bereft of talent or anything, but it's right now they probably have the 20th best roster in the country recruiting-wise, and because of the way some of their players have been misses, realistically it might be more like 25th to 30th. So yeah, make a bowl game, do that once, and keep building. We can talk about 8 wins next year.
Okay. Yeah, 8 wins. 8 wins is a pipe dream with that schedule.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see any way they get to 8. So
yeah,